In this last video, let's talk about function composition. This is totally new and totally different. So you've done addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and now composition. It's a completely different new thing. Now, function composition is usually written with this open circle. Be careful you don't mistake it with a closed circle. Closed circle means multiply, like we did in the last video. Open circle means composition, this new thing. So let's talk about this open circle. Now, just like we did in the last one, there are multiple ways to write this. And I prefer the second way. So a lot of people write it this way and they've nicknamed it like the fog function because that's what it looks like. But it can also be written like this, where the second letter goes inside the first letter. Now, I like to write it this way because then we can use that substituting thing that we did in the last two videos. So let's talk about this substituting thing. We have two substitution steps. The first step is to take whatever is on the inside and then substitute it with the equation for it. So this is our first substitution step. So I know that g of x equals x squared. So I'm going to substitute that x squared in, kind of like what we were doing in the last two videos. So instead of writing g of x, I'm writing what that is. That's my first substitution step. My second substitution step is to now take this and I'm going to substitute it in to my equation for f. So essentially what that means is I'm going to look at my f equation, and anytime I have an x, instead of writing x, I'm going to write x squared. So here's my f of x equation, but instead of writing x, I'm going to write what's inside. I'm substituting this x squared into this equation. So instead of x minus 5, sorry guys, technical difficulties. Let's see if it's fixed. So instead of x minus 5 for f of x, we're plugging x squared into it. So anytime I have an x, I'm going to erase it and change it to that x squared that I substitute in. And that's going to be my answer. That's composition. So let's try number 5. So once again, we've got two substitution steps. Now this one is once again written with the little circles. I'm going to rewrite it with the parentheses so I can see my substitution a little better. And I do see that those are numbers, not x's. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So first step, I'm going to plug g of x in. So substitute g of x in. So I've got h of 2x. Okay? Second step, I'm going to plug this 2x in to my h equation. So let's write out our h equation. It's x squared plus 4. But anywhere we see an x, we're going to erase it and write 2x instead. So I substituted that 2x in. And I'm going to make sure to put parentheses around it to show that this whole thing is squared, not just the x. And there we go. Now, before I talk about the numbers, I want you to try one of these compositions on your own. So I want you to try number 6. So this is f of g. We're going to do x and talk about that a in a minute. So this one. So pause the video, try this one out on your own, and then come back and see how you did. Let's see how you did. So first substitution step is substituting g of x in. So g of x is x minus 3, so I just substituted that in. My second step is to substitute this x minus 3 into f. So I wrote f as x squared, deleted my x, and changed it to my x minus 3, and then I put parentheses around it to show the whole thing is squared, not just the 3. And that's it. Now, one last step, because you'll notice that each of these don't actually have an x. They have numbers or a different letter. So all that means is once I have this equation, so x squared minus 5, if it's a number, I'm just going to plug in that number. So negative 3 squared minus 5, which would be 9 minus 5, or 4. And then this one, I take my equation, 2x squared plus 4, and then I plug in that negative 5. So 2x times negative 5 squared plus 4. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 squared is 100, a positive 100. Be careful about that. And 100 plus 4 is 104. Check. And then this last one is an a. So I'm going to take my equation and plug in an a. So instead of an x, I write an a. And there we go. So that is composition of functions. You should now be able to do your Canvas assignment and your paper assignment. For your paper assignment, if you turn the page, what's required is number 4, and then turn to the next page, 7, and 8. Now, be very careful on number 4. You should have 4 answers. It asks you to add, subtract, multiply, and divide these ones. So that's what was in those first 2 videos. And then in number 7, it asks you to do f of g of x and then g of f of x, which will be 2 different answers. And then in 8, you can pretend that this is f of g of x, get your equation answer, and then just plug 1 into the end. So that should be everything. You're good to get started.